You're sifting and sorting, right? Part of prospecting and database marketing, you're sifting and sorting, and then you identify what leads are need what follow-up, and you put those in your 30, 60, 90-day campaigns, and then you have your pond, right? Well, I'm going to go over the 7 most common mistakes that I see happening after training thousands of agents across the country on a weekly and monthly basis that agents run into, and hopefully you can make sure you don't make the same mistakes. Okay, so mistake number 1 is the mindset. Okay, so what happens is most agents, when they're out there purchasing inbound leads, they expect those leads to be ready, able, and willing. And what the reality is that it's the complete opposite, meaning most of the leads, only 3% of them are actually ready, willing, and able to do something right now. And the rest of this, the 97%, need to be cultivated and nurtured, right? And that's where your database marketing is so important, right? So that's mistake number 1. So what I ask you to do is do some self-reflection. And before you get mad at the lead generation provider or what you're doing, ask yourself what your mindset is towards working leads. Do you understand the cash conversion cycle, right? Like we talked about last week, is your cash conversion cycle on leads is going to be different, right? The ones on the D list are going to be more like 12 months or out. The one on the C list are going to be more like 6 to 12 months out, and then 3 to 6, and then 1 to 3, and then you got your really hot leads, right? So we have to make sure our mindset is right when we're working through our leads, right? Part of that starts off with our approach, and I can tell if somebody's approach and how they are working their leads. I can tell if they have the right mindset. Okay, so number 2 is how we organize our leads, right? So again, this kind of goes into the approach, but how you organize your leads is the second biggest mistake. Meaning leads come in, they're all over the place. We're not really consolidating our database, and we don't have a good structure set up like the one that I went with you. And just as a quick reminder, you want to make sure that you have your pipeline, you have your database set up, right? And you have these lists structured the way that they need to be structured. And then you have a system, or what I would call your center hub. We call it our marketing hub, that you're logging into every single day and that you're working your leads. So if you're not organized, you don't have your database consolidated and your campaign structured, then you're going to run into major problems. That leads me into the third mistake, and that's follow-up. Okay, so what happens is when we follow up with leads, we have to again have an effective approach. So within follow-up, there's a couple kind of mistakes within follow-up that we see happening. The first and foremost, the biggest mistake is inconsistency, meaning because we're not organized, we're not logging into our CRM on a daily basis. We're not setting up time blocks, right, to do our follow-up. We have really inconsistency, or our process is inconsistent, so we get inconsistent results, right? So I actually had one client who was spending probably around $5,000 a month on lead generation, and I asked her an open and honest question. I said, "Let me ask you, how many times do you actually log in, okay, in a week and call through those leads?" The answer was not good. Now, while she was catching some low-hanging fruit, less than 1%, by the way, barely covering her costs to actually generate the leads, barely. She kind of, in its most simplistic way, said, "Yeah, really dumb, like not good." So I asked her why, and she goes, "I get overwhelmed, right? I get overwhelmed. So when I go in there, I just don't know where to start, and I get overwhelmed." And that's why, or this is a stacking effect, right? Is that we have to be consistent. And I told her if she got organized, would she be more consistent? And she said yes, right? So having consistent follow-up is really, really important. Okay. Mistake number 4 is actually how you follow up. Okay. So how you follow up matters. So for example, when you follow up, you don't want to just be using one form of communication. You want to use multiple forms of communication, and we recommend text with video, phone, and email. Okay. So what happens is when you communicate through multiple channels of marketing, your chances of getting a hold of that lead, okay, is much, much greater. So the days of just picking up the phone and calling and then moving on and calling, moving on are over. It's call, text, phone. I'll tell you a quick story on that. I actually was doing a demonstration, and I actually sent out a text message, 20-second text message, video text message to 100 people. And then what we did is followed up by a phone call. Now, the first batch, if I would have just done the text message, I got some good responses, but it was the follow-up phone call that landed us the appointments. And then out of those appointments, we got a handful of listings. So it's about multiple channels of marketing. Now, if I wouldn't have done if I wouldn't have used multiple channels of communication, it would have cost us thousands of dollars in commissions for the brokerage, right? So that's an example of the importance of how you follow up. Okay. So the other, so mistake number 5 is what you're saying. Meaning, what happens in the first 30 seconds of the call, what you're saying is extremely important, right? Tips on that is you want to make sure you put yourself in a position to keep the conversation going and make sure you're not giving off sales triggers, right? So what you want to do is, first step is state where you're calling or who you are. Remind them of what they did, what type of inquiry it was based on the type of lead, and then get into questions as quickly as possible. Okay. So one of the common mistakes that we see here is there's a lot of awkward pauses. They don't get to the point, and we're not into questions quickly. The next thing within this is not only what you're saying, all right, but how you're saying it. All right. But here's the thing on what you say. All right. Just going back to what you say. You want to make sure the structure of this is you want to make sure that you're identifying who you are. You want to make sure that you're reminding them of the inquiry, and then you want to get into questions as fast as possible. All right. That's what's really, really, really important. Now, the next thing is that how you say it. So the next mistake is how you say. How you say it. Meaning, when you're on the phone and you're communicating by phone, do you sound like a robot? Do you have good tone? Do you have good pace? Do you have hesitation and modulation? And are you mirroring and matching? I'll never forget one of the first prospecting calls that I made. I was really excited and I was talking super fast. And it wasn't in this industry. It was actually another industry. And I was talking to an insurance agent. And that insurance agent actually stopped me dead in my tracks. He goes, whoa, slow down. And I was put back. He goes, dude, you are talking way too fast for me. All right. Are you from New York? And I was talking, he's actually down south. And I go, yeah. He goes, slow it down. And it hit me is that I have to make sure I know my audience is, and I got to get better at tone, pace, hesitation, modulation. And I never forgot that. And so I started studying the art and science of how you say it. So you want to pay attention to how you're saying what you're saying and try to mirror and match the best that you can. And finally, I'll leave with this is another big mistake is making sure that you get enough reps in and that you're doing self-reflection. So as you're going down through the body of the script, there's a lot more, and we're going to talk about this next week. But if you don't have a system like a scorecard to score yourself, you're going to end up in a position where you're going to find that you're not improving your skills fast enough. So we have a 7-step scorecard. You want to be scoring yourself on 7 steps all the time. That's building rapport, building value, creating desire and urgency, trial closing, okay, meaning assuming the appointment, overcoming objections, effective follow-up, and tracking your metrics. You want to be scoring yourself on all of those things all the time. And if you do that on a daily basis, your lead conversion will skyrocket. All right. You're gonna definitely get that 3% and more, which is going to double your income and help you achieve your dreams, goals, and desires a lot quicker. So this is my training for today. Next week, you can tune in. We're going to continue the series on some of the mistakes we make when we're further down into our script and we're prospecting past just the first 30 seconds of the call. I think you're going to enjoy that a lot. So we'll see you next week.